Future Radio 107.8. Radio that does different.
Now, turning in this direction, we're delighted to be joined by our second guest today, Keith. Keith Riches, good afternoon to you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon.
Now, I'm going to ask you that question. Have you helicoptered in from somewhere exotic?
Do you know, I knew that was going to be the first question. Yeah. Had a bit of trouble through customs.
Did you?
Yeah, but yeah, it's absolutely fine.
Absolutely fine. And the helipad out the back, we can hear the helicopter whirring away.
I had to come into Norwich, they couldn't land me here.
Did they?
So,
That's how you sit to Norwich Airport and then drive you across.
Yeah.
Honestly, we are stacked full of celebrity people on this show.
Yes,
and
indeed.
And of course, you are a Top Gun website designer. Is that a fair description?
That's a fair description, thank you.
You're very modest, sir.
Yes.
And but multidisciplinary kind of person, I think. You don't just do website coding at all, do you?
No, it's basically, my name's Keith. I run a company called KR Design, and we offer design for print and web-based media solutions, which covers a whole multitude of sins, really.
And someone listening thinking, a whole multitude of sins, what do you mean? Do you mean sort of print for brochures and leaflets and things?
Yeah, absolutely. So anything ink on paper essentially covers the design industry from a print point of view. So that could be, like you say, brochures, business cards, leaflets, banners, exhibition stands, right through to websites, which come in many different shapes and forms.
It sounds a wide range of things. And one of the things I'm always surprised at is people have consistently said about the death of paper and that everybody's business is going to move online. You won't need cards and flyers and brochures. And that just simply isn't true, is it?
No, I mean, certainly there's a huge shift towards web because it's far more accessible. If you need information, it's there straight away. But certainly, the print industry is certainly not dead. People still need print-based literature, and it has a different form that web just doesn't give you.
I was going to say, and the web can only go so far, can't it, really? And you can't put it in your pocket, and you can't fold it up and scribble on the corner of it either.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or make paper airplanes. Do you make paper airplanes out of your brochures, Anna?
I try not to. No. I think working in the industry, I think I probably have more respect than a lot of people if you work in the industry because you know how much it costs and how much work's gone into,
yes,
the production.
And what looks like a simple brochure has been worked on and crafted, and they've talked about the colours. And I used to have arguments about digital printing versus litho printing, and for many years refused to have business cards digitally printed because I didn't think it was good as litho printing. I'm going to hold your card up to the light and have a look. So. And that looks very nice, actually. Is that digital?
No, that's not. No,
that's almost.
No.
I'm confused. See, you can't tell it's litho.
It's very close nowadays.
And of course, the difference is, for me, is that if you hold up something that's digitally printed, you can see the little dots. If you're very sharp-eyed,
yes,
and litho, of course, is a different process that requires plates, and that gives you a much, I think, sharper colour and bolder fields and things like that.
Yeah, of course, you could go down the screen print route as well.
Yes, of course. There's all sorts of print.
He knows what he's talking about, you see.
I shall shush. I'm talking to an expert here.
You are.
And if someone came to you and said, I heard Richard talking about litho printing, I must have a litho printed card, would you advise them against it because it could be more costly perhaps?
Yes, certainly. I mean, there are pros and cons for digital versus litho, certainly from a quantity point of view as well. If you are looking for, let's say, a corporate brochure, you need, say, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000.
Right.
It would certainly come down to a litho job as opposed to digital. Digital is very much for short runs, small quantities.
Right, okay. So that makes sense. And if you want a couple of hundred brochures, digitally print them, get them done with. If you've got a long run, you want it to look super glossy and all the rest of it, and then have it litho printed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I hadn't thought about it like that. Very nice.
And just moving on to talking about websites a little bit, do
yes,
a lot of your clients...
on the plot here, Anna.
No. It was only that I'm quite interested to... do a lot of your clients reflect their website in their brochure and their marketing material and vice versa? Or, is there a lot of brand awareness out there? Or do people come to you and they have a totally different concept for their website as they might do with their brochure and you have to kind of rein them in a little bit?
Yeah, it's a good question. It depends from which angle I come in. So let's say I deal with startup businesses as well. So right from scratch there, we're identifying a brand and looking at how we can roll that out across different media, which is different from an established client who perhaps has contacted me for assistance, which might be through print-based media, that they want some assistance in getting some designs for a flyer done, but that 9 times out of 10 ends up leading on to different forms of media. And my job there is to look after the brand and give them the awareness of what they should be doing with that. So it tends to reflect in both media there.
Yeah.
When you talk about brand, do you think people come to you with some half-formed ideas and say, our brand must look like this, and what they're actually talking about is the colour blue, and they're forgetting the fact that you can't read their logo very easily, or it doesn't make any sense?
Yes, yeah.
You say I have a smile on your face there. Obviously a common problem.
Yeah.
I think as part of my kind of job role, it's my job to go out there and almost teach people what they need to be doing with these things. People, whether they believe it or not, everyone's got a view on design. Even down to the colour that you might paint your kitchen. Everyone has thoughts on colour, design, layouts.
Very much so.
But they don't necessarily perceive it in the way in which I do. But that's my job to go in and help people get an understanding of what a brand is and how important that is, to the core business.
And do you ever have a client who digs their heels in and against your better advice? No, I'm not. But against your better advice, says, "Oh no, it's got to look like this. I've got to do this."
Gothic
and you're thinking,
script in red
"It so
with
isn't
a
going to
pink
work."
border.
Yeah.
Comic Sans with tartan. That's I mean, you do find certainly that there are some strong characters out there who have very strong opinions. Certainly my role is to try and educate on what I perceive to be the best course of action. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the client isn't right. I do deal with people who come up with some very odd, very peculiar ideas, but it's how I interpret their vision in a kind of clear and concise way, really.
Because certainly the vogue a few years back was to be called something crazy, like blue fish sandwiches or green dog design or Batman PR or something, whatever you, and to try and be sort of so cool and funky with your logo, it kind of hurt. Is that vogue still with us? No issue.
There are still people out there who kind of want to associate with being cool, perhaps. But business isn't always about looking cool. It's all about delivering a message, and that's where web and print-based media come in. We are, it's all about communication. It's delivering that business message, and it's got to be done in a clear way. So, calling yourself something radical like that doesn't necessarily reflect what the business is about.
And of course these things can date very quickly. It might sound great in 1 year because it fits in with the kind of zeitgeist, and then 2 years later it just sounds a bit naff. In the same way you wouldn't call yourself sort of Mr. Primley Consulting or something like that, because that might sound a bit 18th century. If Mr. Primley's listening, I'm just using your name at random.
Sorry.
I made it up on the spot actually. So I appreciate you've got to get your message out, and it's all about getting your message out.
Yes.
And so
absolutely.
the next question then is, if I didn't have a website, am I missing out, or am I being a bit clever because the world is just cluttered full of websites?
I think you're perhaps missing a trick.
Right.
If you consider the way in which technology has progressed, certainly over the last 10 years, websites are playing a massive, important role in businesses nowadays. It's your online face to the public, really.
Okay.
People always want reference, and it's easy for people to collect information, what the company does, how to get in contact. Having a website, even for just those very kind of basic bits of information, is really critical nowadays.
So having a page is better than no page?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another question, if I got 20 pages and I've got all the information up there, and is that good, or is less more in website sort of territories these days?
I think it really depends on what it is you're trying to say to people. Certainly if you consider from a search engine point of view, see, the more content that exists on your website, the more chance you've got of Google, for instance, being interested in what your site's trying to say to people.
I hadn't thought about that. So sometimes more can be more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, good
but it's
point.
got to be done in the right way as well. Chucking a load of copy into a website.
I've seen that done. Kind of cut and paste from a folder or a brochure. It just doesn't seem to sit right on the page.
No.
It just
Absolutely.
fills page.
Yeah.
But also, there's the question that you've got to think about what the website is selling. So for some
Yes.
websites, image is everything, and actually copy is, I would imagine, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, almost irrelevant, because the images of what the company is selling, maybe, for example, print companies tend to do a lot of images and very little text, which is probably quite right. But then other companies require a lot more text and a lot more explanation in the copy.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, it's worth considering the context in which your
Sort of
company's
horses for
trying.
courses,
Yeah,
in effect.
but certainly, a current trend kind of coming in nowadays is the use of video on a website. Because Anna, you're completely right there that a picture will paint 1,000 words, and it gets a message across very quickly.
Yeah, I have videos on my website.
Yes, you do.
I
So
do.
you're very forward-thinking.
I'm
Richard.
very forward-thinking.
impressed.
I'm an
But the
early
thing is,
adopter.
people are so busy these days. You have maybe a second to look at a website and for it to capture your
And-
imagination. And so Keith's job is really difficult.
You've got
because
1 second.
He's got 1 second,
1
maybe
second.
5, before the client, the
I know.
person's clicked off and gone to the next website down the page.
That's a tough job, isn't it? 1 second.
Yes.
Mr. 1 second.
Maybe I'm just Mrs. Impatient, but I don't give websites much.
I could possibly comment.
But if I find a website difficult to read or difficult to navigate round, that's it. I'm gone. I'm gone onto the next website down the list.
And does the three-click rule still apply? I was always taught that you had to have 3 clicks to get somewhere good, otherwise people weren't interested. They weren't going to spend all day clicking.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly still true to a certain degree, but it really depends on what it is your website's doing really.
Very good. Okay, we are talking to Keith Riches about website design. Keep your websites straightforward. Think about your message. Have 3 clicks to get somewhere, but more importantly, remember it's your business and you have to do what's right for you. Now we're talking to Keith Riches. He is a designer and a website sort of generally top chappy. I was going to say guru, but that's probably not comfortable with being called a guru, are you? Top chappy, I think.
He's
is probably
too
best.
humble.
He is too
But
humble,
yes,
isn't he?
exactly.
Thank you.
But I
Unlike me.
have a question for Keith, quite an interesting one, I think.
Go on then.
Why would I pay you, Keith, if I've got a mate who can design a website?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I've got a mate.
Yeah.
I get my mate to do it. Surely.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly a lot of people out there that maybe profess to be able to.
I'm not quite
build
up.
you.
Only take me a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. My mate said he could. There are a lot of people, but there are a lot of programs, bits of software out there that enable people to do these. But just because you can, it doesn't always mean to say you should.
Yeah. That's true.
Some of these,
That's the best way of putting it.
some of these programs, offer assistance in, design and layouts, but you've got to consider how that site works, its functionality. There are also there are a lot of browsers out there. People who perhaps use Mac and PC. You've got Safari, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox. They all have their little quirks, and you've got to consider whether they will work across different browsers.
And do you now have to consider about, the different devices like iPhones and iPads and all of those tablets?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly worth considering, modern trends nowadays, obviously, with, the introduction of iPhones and iPads and Android phones. Obviously, people have the ability to gain access to the internet pretty much wherever they are now.
And people make it sound so easy. Oh, I've got a package. You
Yes.
can go onto WordPress. You can have a standalone package. Lots of plugins. I'll soon set that up for you. And they make it sound so easy, but it never is that easy, is it?
This
In
is
my
the thing.
experience, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if WordPress is a good example. I mean, it has the largest market share for a content management system in the world. It's a system. It works, but just like everything in life, you need a certain understanding in order to be able to use these programs. Although they offer, flexibility and functionality for people to be able to build their own websites. There's so much more involved in that. It's kind of the way I'd perhaps describe it is, If you needed a new plug socket put in your house somewhere, you wouldn't get a plumber to come in and do that for you.
No, I wouldn't. And I certainly wouldn't get a mate from the pub to come and do it for me. either,
Exactly.
actually.
Yes.
Especially after a night in the pub.
This is true. Yes, I was on your website now. It's my drunken mate. I do comedy voices
Yes, you
sometimes,
do.
with guests, and so clearly you get what you pay for, and your mate might be a good chap or a good lady for that matter, but you're generally better going to someone who does it day in day out and knows what they're dealing with.
Yeah, I think if you need to contact the right people to do the job for you. And hiring somebody like me to help and assist, you get the benefit of the experience and knowledge that comes with me. Which somebody who might be able to knock a website together, perhaps they wouldn't have that experience.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, actually. If someone's going to knock it together, that might be fine if I'm running a scout troop, but I want something functional just to provide a point of contact. However, we're very much focused here on thinking about business and business websites where it's your brand and it's your shop window. And it's a bit like if you had a shop window, would you have someone off the street just to come and dress it and just throw things in and make it look okay?
Exactly.
Or would you hire a professional to lay it out properly, think about colour schemes and get your message across very accurately?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, again, worth considering that, a brand isn't an identity. They're two very separate things. So somebody might have an identity, but the brand covers so much more than that. The brand is how people perceive that, which includes print and web, general layout. It's so much more than just a mark.
It's a good point, actually. I mean, as you said that, I was thinking, I fall into that trap myself of thinking nice logo, good brand, but actually nice logo is just a logo, and the brand is how you deal with your customers, how you deal with complaints, what does your website look like, do you turn up on time, are your shoes shiny, all those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you consider Apple, for instance.
I've heard of them. What do they do?
Yes.
They make stuff.
A major player out there.
Yeah.
Got a great identity, but a great brand as well.
And I think that it goes down to the shops. You go into the Apple stores and the way the guys are dressed and the fact they don't really have a till. They have a little machine that they just go, oh, yes, we've got that in stock, madam. We'll go and get that for you.
It's amazing.
It's very clever.
Everything's done on an iPad in that store.
Yeah, I think they should have Samsung Galaxies or something. Just be an ironic shop. You're right, though, and I think that's a great point that we are talking about websites which do evidence your brand, but your brand is larger than your website.
Yes.
Absolutely. Your brand is everything. And like you say, the fact that the people who work in those stores, they dress a certain way, they're all pretty good-looking, cool people. That is the brand. Those people represent Apple in just the same way that any person who works for a business, they represent that business, and they are part of the brand.
Absolutely. And something I've noticed, because I write an awful lot of copy for websites myself, my clients, is if I'm asked to rewrite copy for a website that already exists, quite often they miss. It's staggering that you'll have the homepage and the homepage won't say the two most obvious things, i.e. who you are and what you do.
Yes.
And so the homepage has gone on to some amazing prose about something that's completely irrelevant and at no point mentions what the company does.
Or the homepage has a clever logo on it that sort of says Mourn, and that's it. And then you think, well, what do you do then? And it's buried on page 5 under the exclusive product offers. And I know I redid my website a few months back, and it took us a long time to get the architecture right. And I must have rewritten the first 2 paragraphs on the homepage at least 20 times. And then was chatting to a friend and thought, oh God, I forgot to put it onto the website. I had to get me write it. And so it does happen. And do you find with yourself, Keith, that you're having to rewrite things and tweak them constantly?
Yeah, that's certainly part of a website. The ongoing process is far greater than just the website. It's worth considering that when a website goes live, that isn't the end of a website. It's a tool you should use and constantly update.
Yes,
I was going to ask
absolutely.
about that. So I come to you and I say, Keith, you're the guru. You got great design. Can you do me a website? You do the website, and then what? Do I walk away from you, or do I have to look at it once every 6 months or something? What?
I mean, certainly from a website point of view, it's worth considering that you need to keep on top of it in just the same way that you would in your everyday day-to-day life as a business person. Your website is a reflection of you, and you might be offering new services. You might have something interesting that you need to tell people. And certainly the integration of social networking nowadays is really helping people to keep their websites fresh and inviting, and that certainly helps from a search engine point of view as well.
Is that a top Keith Richards tip then, Keith, to integrate social media into your website?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's worth considering the type of business that you are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a huge amount of social networking out there.
Yeah.
But you've got to consider. You've got to get the right one for you. So Facebook might work for one business, but it might not necessarily work for another.
That's a good point. In fact, that's the thing that's come across most in talking to you today. Is actually is all about not one size fits all, and you must go down that direction. It's let's think about your business, your branding in its wider sense, and link it to what you're trying to achieve.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Which is where an off-the-peg website that a mate does for you is not going to work, because that is a one-size-fits-all. But going to Keith does work because he does a bespoke service.
And I can hear the mate's approach say, "Oh, you should have Twitter, you should have Facebook, you should have LinkedIn, you should have your telephone number on the first page."
But it's not right for everyone.
It's not right for everybody.
No.
Very good. So, if I say, Keith, what would be your favourite tip in terms of website design for people coming to talk to you? What's the thing you say more than anything else?
Kind of everything that we've discussed so far, really. When kind of looking at a new website, you've got to really look at the brand, what it is you're trying to say to people, and then move forward from there. So quite rightly, that mate down the pub can knock you one up, but really where's the thought behind what the website's trying to say to people? So that's really key right from the beginning. It's like building a house. You've got to get good foundations in place.
Of course.
So you've got to consider what it is you're trying to say to people.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good. And now we were going to say let's pause the interview there and bring it to an end, but we're not, because we've got a little extra for you, haven't we? Because I believe little birdie has whispered in my ear that you have a special day coming up. Is that the right way of putting it?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us about your special day.
Yeah, so this Sunday is my first wedding anniversary.
Oh, round of applause!
Thank you very much.
Yes,
What's your wife's name, Keith?
It's Karen.
Karen.
I know she's listening. So.
Do you have a message for her?
Yeah, I just tell her I love her very much.
Oh, we're going to cry
welling
again.
up. Hi, Karen.
Hello, Karen.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, Karen.
Are you going to
Happy
do anything
first
special,
wedding.
or would that be spoiling the surprise
That would be spoiling.
Spoiling the surprise. I reckon
She's still got to plan
I
it.
bet she gets her own website.
Yes, yeah.
I reckon
Here
that's what it
I
is.
will design you a website.
And if that's a surprise, I'm sorry for spoiling it, Karen. I don't know why I'm whispering into the microphone, by the way. It doesn't work here.
We'll have a super day, whatever you do,
Fantastic.
Keith.
Thank you very much.
1 year, that is amazing. What is
Yeah.
the first year? Is it paper?
Paper.
It is paper, yeah.
So she'll get a piece of paper, you see. There you
card,
go.
baby.
You can have that.
No. A round of applause, I think.
Yes,
Very good.
well
we
done.
like to do this. And Keith, are you hot-footing it back to your design studio, or are you going off to buy Karen some extra chockies or something?
Yes.
Yes, to both of those. Oh, we can't tease you.